Just like the tides on Myrtle Beach, Nancy Mace's loyalty, it comes and it goes. And a reminder, the South Carolina Congresswoman recruited Nikki Haley to help her get elected in 2022, when Donald Trump was the one who backed Mace's primary opponent. Trump at the time called Mace crazy and terrible. Now, fast forward to now.
That was CNN host Abby Phillips setting up a story about Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace. And before playing the rest of that segment, I want to break down the context. So Nancy Mace is one of the most dishonest members of Congress. We'll talk about that throughout this segment, but it's about more than just the normal dishonesty we discuss on a daily basis. With Mace, it's something unique, I guess you could say. She has this two-faced principles as solid as jello, goes wherever the political winds of a given moment blow her sort of character, where it's so obvious to anyone who is paying attention that she's just playing whatever part she needs to stay relevant, get attention, and attain power. And it's pretty enraging to watch, but I guess it works for many within the GOP. That character works. We've covered in the past examples of Nancy Mace going on Fox News and saying Biden's this massive criminal and we have all the evidence. Then the next day going on CNN saying, yeah, well, we're looking for the evidence. We'll see. She's portrayed herself again on those mainstream networks as moderate in the past by saying more reasonable things on abortion, for example, than many of her Republican colleagues. But then she'll use that moderate credibility to bolster dangerous right-wing lies when she'd appear on right-wing networks. Oh, mainstream, media thinks I'm moderate, but I'm now on a right-wing network, and as a moderate, I can tell you Joe Biden's a criminal. Very dishonest. And it's all just sort of an act, as we've talked about in the past, which is what makes it so aggravating. You all know how I feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene, but at least she's pretty transparent about how crazy she is. Nancy Mace plays an even more opportunistic game. Here's more from Abby Phillips.
Now, fast forward to now.
Nikki Haley is China's favorite governor. And in fact, if she had her way, South Carolina would be manufacturing spy balloons right here in our state. She rolled out the red carpet for communist China when she was governor. Governor Haley started out as an accountant. She went from doing people's taxes to raising people's taxes.
What a difference a year and some political wins make when Mace used to be all over Charleston about Haley's credentials. Listen.
Nikki, we love you. The Low Country loves you. You're numero uno here.
The only candidate on the stage that talked about how we should protect women and not demonize them was Nikki Haley.
She's just done tremendous work on the national stage, but also the global stage. And right now, we need leadership in this world.
I also want to thank former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She is a rock star. And she's been on the campaign trail with us the last couple of days. She's become a good friend, a good mentor. She's a great leader. She lives right here in the Low Country. She's been a great leader for the state of South Carolina.
I'm proud Nancy Mace is our Congresswoman, and I hope you'll join me in voting for her.
I'm Nancy Mace, and I approve this message.
Back in a moment.
So now she's a big Trump supporter after very recently praising Nikki Haley, and this reminds me of her post-January 6th flip-flop on Donald Trump. Let me walk you through this. It's crazy if you haven't seen it before. Again, just wherever the political winds blow her. So after January 6th, she had this to say about what was happening in Trump specifically.
I am so pissed off right now because millions of Americans have been misled to believe that members of Congress can single-handedly overturn the results of this presidential election via a vote to object the Electoral College. Millions of people across the country have been misled to believe that the Vice President of the United States can overturn the results of a presidential election. That is categorically false. That is not anything in our Constitution that Congress or the Vice President is able to.
Inflammatory and divisive. And so my question to you is, should there be accountability and consequences for those actions? If so, what?
Yeah, absolutely. There should be accountability for those actions from the president on down. And it wasn't just the president that enabled this violence to happen, that incited it. I mean, there were, if you watch the speeches or read the transcripts from the speeches that day, if you look at the rhetoric after the November election leading up to it, especially ratcheting up in the last 7 to 10 days. I mean, someone threatened to shoot me on social media over my desire to, my intention to vote to certify what should have been a ceremonial vote to certify the Electoral College. And so people do need to be held accountable.
So she's saying that the rioters are there based on a lie. That was actually, I think, while the riot was going on, to correct what I previously said. Thinking Pence could block the certification of the election constitutionally was crazy, and people were being violent because of that belief. And then saying Trump enabled the violence later on and should be held accountable for it. Of course, all correct, but similar to Kevin McCarthy, that was during the political window where it seemed like January 6th was the massive straw that broke the camel's back and America was going to fully move on from Trump. And then the GOP base did not move on, so they had to reverse course, because it's not about principle or people, it's about politics and power for them. So then she, not too long after the videos I showed you, posted this humiliating video outside of Trump Tower.
Hey everyone, Congresswoman Nancy Mace here. I'm in front of Trump Tower today, and I remember in 2015 when President Trump announced his run. I was one of his earliest supporters. I actually worked for the campaign in 2016. I worked in 7 different states across the country to help get him elected. I supported him again in 2020 because of policies I believed in. He brought American jobs back. He lowered our taxes, wages, and employment were better for every hardworking American in our country. He made America safer, and he took on China directly. And America was stronger all around the world. And quite frankly, freedom and democracy was stronger all around the world. And these are things I still believe in today, policies I believe in and continue to. As a strong fiscal conservative, I believe in putting America first. I believe in putting our country back on the path to prosperity.
And that was after Trump endorsed her opponent because of the earlier words I showed you. So she's trying to win Trump back and win his base back. And now the same thing is playing out with her remarks about Nikki Haley. She's seeing that Trump is obviously going to be the nominee, so she's saying whatever she needs to get into his good graces. And you know, every time I see political figures like Nancy Mace, I genuinely wonder, how on earth can that produce a fulfilling life? Like, however my life ends up, for example, I'm at least gonna know that everything I've been advocating on behalf of, I genuinely, truly believe in. But imagine going to bed at night and knowing that you're just using so many of your days, limited days on the planet, playing a character you don't really believe in, just for some political gain. And then what if she ends up failing at her ultimate goal, whatever that might be, and all of this dishonesty was for nothing? Pretty sad life, gotta say. Now, this Nancy Mace is all about Nancy Mace reality. It has been getting reported on for some time. One of her GOP colleagues sent a text to another about her, and it was a link to a video about how to deal with narcissists. Here was Mace being confronted about that reporting.
I understand that, and I know maybe given your rising fame and only 2 terms now seeking a third, you've certainly gotten a lot of people's attention, but a lot of your colleagues just don't know what to make of you. There was a time that you liked Kevin McCarthy, then you didn't, that you liked and supported, Steve Scalise, and then you didn't. Right now you say you're with Mike Johnson, that's great, but they don't trust you. In fact, there's this Washington Post story that says, how do you talk to a narcissist? A lot of people feel that you're a narcissist. It's all about Nancy Mace. What do you say?
Politics sure is an ugly business, isn't it, Neil? And when you are on the rise, people are going to attack you no matter what. And I didn't read the Washington Post article. I quite frankly don't care what the Washington Post thinks about me. I care about what my constituents in my state and the people across this country that I'm trying to support, I care what they think.
And clearly this way of going about politics is alienating even within her own staff. She had 3 staff members leave in 1 week recently, and her former chief of staff is running against her in this upcoming election cycle. So I guess I wanted to go through that to remind you that when we see these bizarre flip-flops in politics, it's so often anything but a genuine change in principles, and instead an opportunistic, ego-driven political move to increase one's power and relevance. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.